Hello and welcome to the special series on technical writing. Today we are discussing formal modes of writing in form of agenda, minutes and other meeting communication. The agenda is the statement of the business including supporting documentation for consideration or noting at the meeting. The secretary drafts the agenda and the chairperson amends or approves the agenda. Once the agenda is approved by the chair, it is circulated to the members and other interested parties. Now, let us talk about order of the agenda. The agenda includes a cover sheet which states the date, time and the place of the meeting, the name of the committee, the meeting number for the year, the list of the items. Thoughtful ordering of items on the agenda helps to ensure that urgent and important matters are listed first. The chairperson may choose not to follow the order of agenda as set out on the cover sheet. Generally, the order of agenda is as follows. Apologies. A phone number or email address is provided so that members who cannot attend the meeting can easily contact the secretary to express an apology. Next is confirmation of the minutes. This heading refers to confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. This includes the date of the minutes to be confirmed and indicates whether they are enclosed with the agenda or have been previously circulated. Business arising out of the minutes. This heading refers to brief follow-up reports on matters that were discussed at the previous meeting. Note that matters which have significant new information require further detailed discussion and or action are listed as separate items in the agenda. Matters for consideration. This section lists those matters which the committee needs to discuss in detail and which requires some action or decision together with the page where the item is listed. Matters for noting. This section lists items for information only together with the page where the item is listed. General business. This heading is used to enable members to raise issues at the meeting. Note that the minutes should never have a heading like general business as the items must be categorized. Now, we talk about writing an agenda item, that is agendum. Each agenda item has a clear and concise heading that accurately describes the item. Consistency in the use of headings makes it easier to trace the history of discussion or decision making for a particular topic and allows the topic to be filed in the correct file. This facilitates later retrieval of the information. Each item has a recommendation for the committee to consider. The recommendation may be directional. Example, it is recommended that members approve, or it is non-directional. For example, it is recommended that members consider. An agenda item also includes relevant background information and carefully written supporting documentation which are found in central files, previous minutes of the committee or minutes of other committees. Before writing an item, secretaries should always check relevant files, past minutes, current policies and rules for pertinent information. Sufficient relevant information should be provided to allow the committee to give careful consideration to an item. The secretary uses good judgment to determine the amount of supporting documentation to be provided with an item of business. Supporting material of a few pages is included with the item in the agenda papers. This is referred to as an attachment, and the agenda item text includes reference to this material. Lengthy supporting documentation is included with the agenda papers as a separate document with independent pagination. This is referred to as an enclosure. The enclosure is identified on the cover sheet and the agenda item text refers to the enclosure and at times specific pages in the enclosure. Often it is necessary to summarize numerous or lengthy submissions or to expedite consideration at the meeting. In summary, the agendum is a clear and succinct statement of the issue to be discussed. It provides essential background and supporting documentation, and it sets out the options available to the committee where appropriate recommendations of a course of action is done. Circulation of agenda. Approved agendas are sent to members no later than 1 week prior the meeting. This gives members sufficient time to read the agenda, consult the area they represent and prepare for discussion. Second or subsequent circulations of the agenda, if needed, should reach members no later than 48 hours before the meeting. Unless absolute necessary, it is advisable to avoid distributing or that is tabling other items at the meeting. If the chairperson approves, the agenda may also be sent to individuals who are not members of the committee because their role requires knowledge of the business of the committee. Tabled documents are sent to members who were not present at the meeting and to others who receive a copy of the agenda. A copy of each tabled document is filed with other agenda papers for the meeting to complete the record. The secretary should ensure that the file copy includes the notation that the document was tabled at the meeting with the committee name and meeting date. The minutes are the formal record of the meeting. Minutes provide an accurate, concise record of the meeting and provide clear and unambiguous statements of recommendations, decisions and action required. They also include a brief historical record. The minutes are drafted as soon as possible after the meeting. Draft minutes are reviewed, edited and approved by the chairperson prior to circulation to members. The minutes are confirmed by the committee at its next meeting and any approved amendments form part of next set of minutes. A minute includes the essential and relevant background to the topic under discussion. It provides a succinct summary of the discussion. It clearly leads to the resolution. Well written minutes will have the following key characteristics. It is brief and informative. It is factual, accurate, relevant. It is objective and impartial. It is logically presented and it is a record. Minutes are public documents which become part of the historical record of the organization. Individual speakers are not usually referred to by name unless they have spoken in an expert or official capacity. Discretion should be exercised. Each page of the minutes has a header which contains the following information, that is the committee name, meeting number, meeting date, security level of the minutes, that is if it is confidential. The following are included in the minutes, that is those who were present, the title and the name of each of those who attended the meeting, beginning with the chairperson followed by an alphabetical list of other members. The secretariat and regular observers are listed after the members. Some larger committee lists only the chairperson and the secretary by name and the total number of members present. It has also a list of invited people, that is a separate list of those who might be attended by invitation for all or parts of the meeting. Apologies, an alphabetical list of those members from whom apologies were received. Minutes, that is a statement that the committee confirmed the minutes of the previous meeting. Next, business arising out of the minutes. A brief update only on matter in progress, deferred or completed. If there is further detailed discussion at the meeting or a resolution was made, the matter should be recorded as a separate item in the minutes. Now, each item is given a clear, concise heading which mirrors the heading in the agenda, papers or past minutes and describes the issue and resolution or action items. The order of items in the minutes need not follow the order of agenda or the order in which items were discussed at the meeting. Before writing a minute, consider the final outcome of the discussion. Was an agreement or a decision reached? What was it? This process helps identify what aspects of the discussion are relevant for inclusion in the minutes. Now, let us talk about resolutions. The ability of a committee to make a decision or a recommendation is determined by the terms of reference of the committee, the reporting lines of the committee and decision making structure and approval delegation of the organization. Resolutions that are within the remit of the committee to decide commence with the words "it was resolved." Resolutions that involve a referral to a higher authority are recommendations only and commence with the word "it was resolved to recommend." Now, resolutions specify the outcome of the discussion, it identify action required, include implementation dates. In order to draft a resolution that clearly identifies the appropriate outcomes, it is necessary to think through the consequences of the decision, recommendation and proposed action. It is necessary to carefully consider the resolution so that all consequences are understood and all issues and implications have been addressed. The following general principles apply. Each resolution records a single decision or recommendation. Resolutions are placed at the end of a minute. A single resolution may consist of several subsections, each of which records an aspect of that particular decision, recommendation or its implementation. Resolutions clearly express the intention of the recommendation and resolutions are standalone. Ensuring that decision can be understood without reference to the minuted item. Therefore, acronyms should be avoided. The secretary is responsible for initiating actions on all resolutions. Further action by may be necessary when approval has been given for the committee's recommendation. For example, initialization or initiating action for implementation of an approved policy. From time to time, action subsequent to a meeting may affect a decision made in committee and its associated resolution. The subsequent relevant action may be inserted into the minutes as a brief statement after the resolution in square brackets. This statement should not be incorporated in the minuted item as it was not considered by the committee. Remember, once the committee agrees on a decision, the resolution cannot be amended in the minutes. Let us talk about attachment to the minutes. When the committee has approved or recommended the approval of an important policy, procedural statement or major report, it may be attached to the minutes. Where an attachment is referred to in the minutes, the annotation ATT appears in the margin of the minutes. The cover page of attachment is annotated to indicate the name of the committee, the date of the meeting, and the item in the minutes to which the document forms an attachment. The attachment is filed with the minutes. Annotation in the right margin of the minutes, that is markups, next to the resolutions assist the secretary to readily identify items that require action or to record what follow-up action has been undertaken. If the person responsible for action is not the secretary must advise the relevant person of the required action to ensure it is completed. The secretary should not rely on the designated action officer acting on the receipt of a copy of the minutes. Now, let us talk about finalizing the minutes. The secretary submits draft minutes to the chairperson of the committee for approval. The meeting file is submitted with the draft so that the chairperson has all the papers relevant to the meeting readily available when considering the draft minutes. Draft minutes should be sent to the chairperson within 1 week of the meeting. Printed minutes, or if the chairperson approves, electronic copies are sent to members, to the secretary and to others as appropriate. Minutes are usually distributed immediately after they are finalized or held for distribution with the agenda for the next meeting. A copy of the minute is retained in the appropriate file. Confidential items are clearly labeled as confidential, and the distribution of these items is often restricted. Action arising from the meeting, now let us talk about that. The secretary is responsible for initiating and following up all action arising from the meeting. Secretaries prepare correspondence arising from the meeting, including conveying recommendations to the relevant senior officer, formally advise others of action they have been requested to take, items to note, implementation required, and they prepare reports from the committee to other committees or senior officer, and ensure originals of all correspondence and documents relating to the meeting are held in the appropriate file. The secretary may find it useful to prepare an action sheet from the minutes. An action sheet sets out by item the action to be taken and notes when action has been taken and by whom. This ensures that no necessary action is overlooked and reminds the secretary to follow up matters that require further attention. Action notes also assist the secretary to prepare business arising items for the next meeting. When all action is complete, the action sheet is filed on the meeting file for future reference. Now, let us talk about amendments to the minutes. An amendment to the minutes may be requested by a member at a meeting under the item confirmation of meetings of previous meeting. In the event that the chair approves a proposed amendment, this amendment must be minuted without ambiguity. The amendment must include the following: the item number, heading, page number, paragraph and line number if required to identify the relevant section to be amended, statement of amendment, for example, replace the word deputy head of school with head of school. The previous minutes are not corrected. Now, flying minutes. When the chair of a committee requires for a committee to make a decision on an issue prior to the next scheduled meeting, a flying minute may be prepared to facilitate the decision making and approval process. The following 3 documents should be prepared: covering memorandum, response page and flying minute. The memorandum, response page and any relevant attachments are emailed to committee members. Members must record their decision on the response page, sign it and return it to the secretary by the stipulated deadline. All committee members should be encouraged to respond, as the committee's quorum is the minimum number of valid responses required to obtain a decision. After the minimum number of decisions have been received and assessed, a flying minute is drafted and sent to the chair for approval prior to standard distribution to members. The style of the flying minute is that of a standard minute and must include a clear resolution. Now, to summarize, the agenda is the statement of the business, including supporting documentation for consideration, noting at the meeting. The secretary drafts the agenda and the chairperson amends or approves the agenda. In summary, the agendum is a clear and succinct statement of the issue to be discussed. It provides essential background and supporting documentation and sets out the options available to the committee where appropriate and recommends a course of action. The minutes are the formal record of the meeting. Minutes provide an accurate, concise record of the meeting and provide clear and unambiguous statements of the recommendations, decisions and action required. They also include a brief historical record. Thank you so much for watching this program.